Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por venir a esta charla que vamos a tener con la gente de Prozorro de Ucrania. Vamos a hablar del trabajo que han hecho en Ucrania para mejorar la transparencia de los procesos de contratación y esto es parte de las sesiones de trabajo que estamos haciendo en el Media Lab Prado para definir la innovación en la contratación pública. Entonces, esto está relacionado con la primera sesión de cómo debería ser el portal de contratación perfecto. La charla va a ser en inglés, así que empezamos en inglés y voy a dar paso a Vasyl para que nos cuente. Thank you, Vasyl, for being here. Vasyl is the CEO of Prozorro, and he's going to show us, through a brief presentation first, he's going to show us all the work that they've been doing in Ukraine, and then we'll have a quick Q&A session. You can send your questions by chat, and I'll send the questions that we received to Vasyl. So Vasyl, thanks a lot for being here. You're ready? Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, I'm really pleased to be here today. I'm really appreciate with your interest into the Ukrainian experience. I'm pretty sure it should be really extensive and interesting discussion for me as well, because the Prozorro project is mostly about the transparency and civil society involvement and experience sharing. And yes, definitely, I'm a CEO of state-owned enterprise Prozorro. I will cover it in several moments. Within this presentation, first of all, I'd like to cover the idea of public procurement reform in Ukraine. And the thing I really like to do is to share our experience and our, I would say, recipe for the success, as far at least how we see it. So probably you know about it, but I mean, everything started really within this photo. By the way, can you see the changing within my screen? Can you see the next slide? Is it available? Oh, great.
Yes,
so
yes.
Yeah. So everything started like 3 years ago. It was even 4 years ago, at the end of the 2013, when the revolution of dignity starts. This is one of the photo from the times, the center of Kiev, and within the revolution, even at the very beginning, there were very huge and powerful volunteer motion, which was focused on the changes in the government and in different public areas. That's why it's not surprisingly, public procurement was chosen by the group of volunteers at the end of the Revolution of Dignity as the area which which was one of the most corrupted, and which in turn should be fixed in the nearest time. So based on the statistics which we took from the papers, so it's not really precise, but still, approximately 20% of from 12 billion of United States dollars were spent inefficiently, either because of corruption or because of limited competition, when only several suppliers can take part in the public procurement area. So that means that at least 2.4 billion of United States dollars were lost on the annual base. And basically, public procurement was seen as the just synonym to the corruption. I used to work before 2012 for one of the biggest Ukrainian-based IT integrator, and I personally have heard about some cases when we got a ban to work with the public procurement entities at all. So I only had twice experience for very small contracts with the public procurement entities. But I've heard about the cases where when the public procurements wants this kind of corruption tax or kickback in amount of 75% from the estimated contract value. So that means that from the 100,000 United States dollars contract, they want to get a cash with the 75,000 of United States dollars. That was something crazy. That's why this area were selected as one of that should be fixed. And probably here I should mention the first and one of the major part of the reform which were introduced and which, from my perspective, was the one of major key success factors. We called it golden triangle of partnership. It has not.
Sorry, Vasyl, what we were still seeing the first slide. I think you were not. You have to select the next slide. On the
screen. How it works in. Okay, so seems it doesn't work perfectly in okay, I'll do it in
I think we are seeing your screen, so can you just
yeah, I mean I'll do it this way. Okay, one moment. Okay, once more. And so yeah. Okay. So can you see it right now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So yeah, I was told about the revolution of dignity. I told about the distribution of the corruption tax and the inefficient spending. And now let me tell something about the golden triangle of partnership. Is it works right now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. So this golden triangle of partnership simply has to do nothing with this drug region in South Asia. It's more about connecting all different stakeholders in order to fix something in the government. And we found it really useful to involve governments and the civil society and the business in order to fix something within the government. And we really do believe that only such involvement of broad stakeholder coalition can really help us can really help us to change something in terms of whole society. Because without government, you cannot establish the right rules, and you cannot get enough power. But without the civil society, you cannot be sure that all these changes and all these rules would be aligned and would be monitored by the citizens. And without the business, might be done only like in this government style, with a lot of bureaucracy, with a low level of service, and without modern way of service providing. In terms of Prozorro, that mean that we involved Transparency International as a civil society representative and a lot of other non-governmental organization. We also built our system in a public-private partnership way, and I will cover this in the next slide. So it is a tricky thing. We built the system which we called hybrid one. That means that we have the central database, which we call CDB as well. And it is the only part of the system which is being owned by the government. This database not only consists all the data about the current procurement procedures, but also contain the logic, the business logic of these procedures. On the other hand, we have approximately 30 of them, marketplaces, which operates as the interface to either procuring entity or the suppliers. It is absolutely independent, privately owned, basically companies, which connect to the central database through the open API within the long accreditation process, but still, and which then can provide an access to the central database for the procuring entities. That means that when you announce a procurement procedures, you just first should select the marketplace which you will use and announce your procedure there. And then the suppliers can choose any other marketplace, but he will also see all the procurement procedures and place the bid through the, say, marketplace number 2. And the second supplier will choose the third marketplace and place the bid through the marketplace number 3, and so on and so on. By building such system, first of all, we dramatically decrease the competition between the existing e-commerce solution, which already were in place in Ukraine. So by this solution, instead of compete with them, we just involve them into building the whole solution. Second of all, we decrease dramatically total cost of ownership of the central database to the government. So the government right now do not have any kind of operating interface. And believe me, in terms of Ukraine, it's commonly governmentally built interface looks like it was built in the USSR time. Moreover, the marketplaces start to compete with each one in order to provide more services to suppliers, because the business model is based on the number of suppliers which were attracted by each marketplace. So started at the reform was started at I would say, March of 2014. And at the beginning of 2015, we started the pilot. Started from 1st of April 2016, Prozorro system was implemented as obligatory to all purchasers, all customers, all public purchasers through whole the Ukraine. And right now we have more than 1 million procurement procedures which were announced and proceed within the system. More than 29,000 of procuring entities, more than 120,000 of suppliers, approximately 30 billion euro of expected contract values of these procedures, and approximately 1 billion savings, which is the difference between the expected contract value and actual contract value in the system. Amount of tender procedures based on European Union directives were established in the system. Still, we are in progress with the framework agreements and the electronic catalogs. We expect them in the system at the mid of 2018. Once more, one of the probably the second major factor of the Prozorro success was the usage of open contract data standard at the base of the data structure within the Prozorro. It helps the CDS standard, which is being published by the OCP initiative was fully implemented in Prozorro system, and it really helps us make the system much more easy to understand and to integrate with other tendering systems. This is one of the most interesting slides in my presentation. It's the screenshot from our business intelligence tool, which is fully accessible through the BI Prozorro.org address in the internet. You can access it right now. It was built on the Click solution. It consists like more than 1,000 different variables, and it consists information about each and every procurement procedures, which is now being proceed within the Prozorro system. So any Ukrainian citizen, any human on the earth can access this system and analyze procuring procedures within the specific hospital, within the specific school, can analyze the trend, can get the information about its market. We also built a professional risk indicating system, which should help the monitoring entity to identify suspicious behavior of either customer or suppliers, and to plan the audits in order to eliminate this violation. So again, because the system is fully open and you have approximately 1,000 variables, you can use the artificial intelligence in order to analyze the suspicious behavior, the correlation between the different variables, and identify the deviation from the average within the different indicators. This system has now been piloted, and we expect it to be in a production mode from the beginning of 2018. We also built like Google-like search, which is again fully accessible through the internet to any kind of supplier, in order to help them to find their specific procurement procedure and increase competences. And we also introduce the library of typical specification. That's mean the tool which can help the customer to write the technical specification for the specific procurement. Right now, it contains the specification for more than 300 different CPVs, and it's still being filled with a new one. As for state-owned company, I should mention that it is the company which I'm being in charge with. I'm responsible for basically maintaining the central unit, the central database, and the managing of these privately owned marketplaces. We got several interesting projects within our backlog for the nearest future. So I already covered the framework agreements. Also, we are going to introduce the e-catalogs and increase the number of machine-readable data within the nearest time. We're also in the process of integration with the state registers, and it's kind of joke within our company that we also drive the eGov in Ukraine, because we stimulate these state registers to be much more automatable and readable, and introduce APIs and so forth. And definitely we should improve contract management and invoicing. Also, we see a big opportunity in big data implementation. Definitely, we got pretty huge amount of data. It's approximately 35 terabytes of information right now in the system, and the security and the sustainability also in our focus as well. It is a photo of product backlog for the 2018. So I assume it's a lot of things that should be done in the nearest future. And as for data, I also should mention that amount of data that we have also helps us to work with the market based on like commonly used marketing analysis tools. So we introduced the data analysis unit within the Ministry of Economical Development and Trade. We introduced several marketing campaigns as well in order to attract more and more suppliers. So yeah, probably that's it. For more details, you can refer the links which you can see on the screen. And I really would be appreciated to answer any of your questions should they rise. Yeah, so I will stop my presentation. And yeah.
So thanks a lot, Vasyl. That was very interesting. And I must say that we heard about Prozorro quite a few years ago at Civio, but we were really impressed when we first used your website, because we use it for an investigation into prices of medicines, and we were impressed by the amount of information that is available on your site. So just to give you an idea of how it is in Spain at the moment, in Spain often you only get the final amount of a contract, of a bid, and you get the winner of the bid, but you don't know who else applied, or you don't know if there is any modification after the contract is won. So what information do you have, or do you think is most important in terms of transparency in all the information you have? What do you think is most relevant and had the biggest impact?
Well, let me just show it to you, not to be like only orally. I can, yeah, okay. So here you can find, here you can see the public procurement portal. And well, I mean, yeah, first of all, you got amount of different filters which you can use to find the specific procurement procedure within the different status in the some kind of specific region or whatever type. So we can use like with a publication in English. Yes, with the submission of proposal. Okay, so yep. So what can you see here? First of all, it's a short description of the procedure itself. It's the procedure number, procedure, which by the way is unique, and link which you can use in order to refer API as well. I will show it in a moment. Okay. Also, you can see here the procedure status, which mean you can filter basically the procedure which can be accessible right now or not. You can see the name of a procuring entities, its unique number within the Ukrainian state register of legal entities, the contact person, and all the specific dates which can be interested to the suppliers. All the documentation, all the appeals, unfortunately in Ukrainian, basically because the knowledge of English is not really good within the Ukrainian customers. All the solutions, all the information about what should be procured, and the documentation of all bidders. Moreover, you also can refer the Prozorro portal, which is the portal of the civil society and contains well, like a feedback for this specific procedure. And also you can see the feedback for the specific customers. So you can just use a kind of Uber-like rating in order to understand is this specific customer is good enough in order to take a part within its tender or not. Moreover, this information for this specific procedure is also available through the API public API in JSON format. Okay, now it's been loaded, and so you can see all this information as well, or download it into your market analysis tool as well. From my perspective, this amount of data which are available through the Prozorro system, not like a kind of specific field, but all this amount of data are really important in order to increase the trust between the suppliers and the government, because now you can see not only the procedures which were ended and not only the signed contract. You can see all the data from the very beginning, from the moment when it were included into the procurement plan till the kind of specific contract with the specific documents, with the understanding of which supplier was accepted or declined, which arguments were used by different stakeholders, where the appeals are not, and so on and so forth. Okay, yeah, let me stop it. So yeah, from my perspective, it's really important okay, good. From my perspective, it's really important to show as much data as you can, because by this you just by transparency, basically you just not only address the corruption, but you also increase the trust. And by the way, Prozorro from Ukrainian means transparent. It's basically translation for the word transparent. So show as much data as you can. That's my advice.
And you do it in a very organized and structured way, because you use this standard format, the international standard open contracting, OCDS open contracting data standard, which is fantastic. And we are trying to promote that in Spain. One thing that we like a lot also about what you do is that because you have access to all these contracts and all this data, and you know, for example, who is the bidder for each contract, you have a number of metrics that you've talked about in the past. Like, for example, you are measuring how much competition there is in the market as overall, and you are tracking metrics for that, right?
Yeah, definitely. Again, so it's all about the, I would say, when 21st century, which is the century of data. So as far as you have all this data, you can then measure some kind of complex KPIs. Yeah, we measure the average number of bids per procurement procedure. And right now, it's not the statistic which is being reported by the customer. It's the statistic which can be taken from the system itself. We're also measuring the number of suppliers which took part only in a few number of procurement procedures, like newcomers or nurture suppliers. We're also measuring the average number of bids per supplier. So, for example, we have the supplier which can place more than 1,000 of bids per month, and on another hand, we have the suppliers which place only one bid per month. So yes, but basically we are mostly focusing on the competencies level and on the successfulness level of the procurement procedure. Yeah. Right now, with the help of Kiev School of Economics, we also developing like the new level of public procurement area KPIs.
Yeah, and what has been the impact of all this? I mean, have you seen a decrease, for example, in corruption? Do you see better pricing? Do you have less complaints from bidders?
Yeah, so talking about the corruption and talking about the pricing, first and the most, I would say, nice KPI is definitely savings, which were introduced because of the system, and that means the difference between the contract value and the estimated contract value, and it's more than €1 billion actually right now. Based on the statistics, which really not precisely on the previous paper-based system, we can compare the percentage. So we increase the savings more than 5 times compared to the situation which it was in the previous system. Moreover, we increase the number of suppliers. Right now, there are approximately 129,000 of suppliers in the system. So we increase the number of suppliers dramatically, right? Like more than 5 times compared to the previous system. That means we really open the market to the suppliers. As for corruption, so again, definitely we have some kind of issues with the corruption as well. So we got some kind of specific customers which sometimes do not want to be aligned with the law, and I mean, but right now you can access all this information like in a 5-second moment. You do not need to write the long official letters, and get all this information. And based on just our surveys, the suppliers and the civil society reports about the dramatically decreasing of corruption in the public procurement area as well. But still, there are a lot of things to do, definitely, because so we definitely address the most, I would say, the most direct corruption schemes. For some, in some cases, we in turn stimulate customers to introduce new corruption schemes. But that's, I mean, regular work with each kind of accounting IT system. So we need to introduce more and more complex mechanisms, and there are a lot of things to do.
Yeah, and you said you're working on these risk indicators, and you were going to work on that next year?
So, I mean, as for risk indicators, they are already implemented. Let me show it to you again. So, okay. Unfortunately, they do not have English interface, but still. So yeah, these indicators were implemented like 2 months ago. They are now being piloted. So we got around 17 indicators which are already in system, with the risk map as well, with the identification of suspicious procurement procedures. Ukrainian parliament, like a week ago, yeah, it was last Thursday, previous Thursday, I mean, preliminary adopted the law of the monitoring entity. So we are waiting for the middle of December when this law will be adopted by the parliament on a fully mode, and that means that we will have the monitoring entity which will be obliged to use this tool in order to monitor the procurement procedures and initiate some kind of, I would say, specific actions in order to either identify the violation and put the fines, or just to understand that everything were right. So yeah, this tool is already is implemented, but still it waits for adopting the law in order to make it obligatory.
Okay, I understand. And the last thing I wanted to ask you was, was something that you mentioned briefly, which was that people can complain and they can basically they can complain about a particular contract directly on the site, right? I think.
Yes. So you can just there are several layers of complaints in the Prozorro system. So you either can put a complaint or a question to the procuring entity directly from like a Prozorro Gov.ua or from each privately owned marketplace. So in this case, you even do not need to be registered as the suppliers. So just even being a civil society person, you can place this question and ask the customer either to clarify something within the, I would say, RFP, or to change something within the RFP if you think that there are some kind of discriminative clauses in the tender documents. And second of all, you can also to place the complaint to the complaint entity, which is anti-monopoly committee in Ukrainian case, and it also can be do online without putting any kind of paper documents in the envelope and sending it somewhere. Yeah, the bottom line is all complaints can be put online within the IT system.
Okay, so that's really impressive. I mean, we still have a lot of work to do here in Spain to get to that level of transparency and accountability. So I think that's all the questions we have on our side. And thanks a lot for your time, because you know you're a very busy person. I know that everybody wants to talk to you about Prozorro and actually expand to other countries, right?
Can you please repeat the last question?
Yeah, I heard that you not only you're doing all this work in Ukraine, but you are also trying to work in other countries.
Well, I mean, that's another interesting thing about the Prozorro. Prozorro is an absolutely open source software solution. So you can refer open procurement projects on the GitHub repository. I even will show it you in a moment. Okay, so probably you can see it.
Yep.
So that's a GitHub repository where you can refer all the program code. So like energy saving procedures, for instance, with all configuration files and the Python code file and so on. So yeah, basically the Prozorro is absolutely open source. So you can use the system by your own. You can write your own models and use it by yourself. And yes, we are really interested in the system spreading through whole the world because of two reasons. First of all, the more countries will implement this scheme, the more secure the system will be in Ukraine. And still, it's somehow should be secured. And second of all, it will decrease the total cost of ownership for each of us. So the more country will contribute in the code, the more cheaper will be the code, and the more easy it will be to make the cross-border trade as well. Because again, system is absolutely electronically based, so you can take part in the Ukrainian procurement procedure. Ukrainian suppliers can attract the Spanish market and so on.
So we are going to do our best to try to copy or implement as much of Prozorro as we can here in Spain. We are going to try to convince public administrations to copy your ideas and to follow your steps. So thanks a lot, Vasyl, for your time. And to our Spanish audience, solo recordaros que esto es parte de unos talleres que estamos haciendo en el Media Lab Prado. Tenéis más información en la descripción del vídeo aquí debajo. Vamos a tener encuentros mensuales hablando de innovación en contratación pública desde un enfoque de transparencia y anticorrupción. And thanks again, Vasyl. Thanks a lot for your time, and hope to see you soon in Spain.
Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot. Have a nice evening. It
You
was
too.
really
Bye.
nice. Yeah, bye-bye.